what I want to start with is the idea of calories in, calories out. So this week alone, a very big book came out by a very popular author. He's been in the content creation space for a long time, blogging, podcasting. His book came out this week, which again reiterated the idea that it doesn't matter where you get your calories from. You need to have a caloric deficit to maintain not just weight, but health overall for the rest of your life. Whether you do, a low carbohydrate diet or a high carbohydrate diet, it doesn't matter as long as you can figure out some way to control for calories. How would you respond to that?
Right. Okay. What people need to understand is that calories are a construct. What is a construct? A construct is an idea or a model or a representation of some phenomena or another. The thing about constructs, models, representations is that they are necessarily simplifications. They are necessarily thought of. If you've got a good model, that model is a good and accurate representation of the phenomena that we're talking about. In the case of a calorie, unfortunately, that is not so. A calorie in the context of nutrition science is the way that we generally refer to so-called energy contained within our foodstuffs. We need a measurement of energy. The problem with that is that energy is itself also a construct, an idea, a model, a representation. Energy cannot be measured. The only thing we can measure is the effect of the so-called energy on something physical, some piece of kit, some system, some bit of machinery, some group of atoms or something like that. A calorie is a measurement of specifically so-called heat energy, which is actually a form of kinetic energy and nothing else. What it's measuring is, if I take a sample of food, whatever that is, of a certain amount, size, volume, and I put it inside this metal chamber that we seal up completely called a bomb calorimeter, and that bomb calorimeter has a bath of water around it with a thermometer in it, and then I put a huge electrical current through that foodstuff and completely vaporize it with a huge current immediately. What we get out of that is some carbon dioxide gas, some water vapor is released, and some heat energy comes out of that explosive vaporization of that food sample, and that immediate, we're going to nuke it with this huge current of electricity, gone. What happens is that heat is in the form of things called photons, which are thought of as the point particle of the electromagnetic field, actually, if you want to know, but whatever, that's for another day. Photons are the things that make up light. These particular photons, these heat photons, are at a wavelength we can't see with our eyes, but nonetheless, they are there, or not there, depending on, it's about quantum physics. Again, that's for another day, don't worry about that. What happens is these photons will go out through the space in the bomb calorimeter, strike the walls of the bomb calorimeter, those metal walls, excite those metal crystals in that metal bomb calorimeter. And the excitement is in the form of causing the atoms and molecules in that metal to vibrate, like so, or rotate, whatever. And then that kinetic energy in those molecules is then passed on to the water outside the bomb calorimeter. So the so-called energy passes through the air to the wall of the bomb calorimeter, then through the bomb calorimeter to the water. And eventually it strikes the water and causes the water molecules to start to move more rapidly. That force, if you like, is translated to the water molecules, and they heat up, and the thermometer says, well, you've gone up by 1 degree C. A calorie is the amount of so-called energy released by completely exploding a food substance in the bomb calorimeter, sufficient to heat 1 gram of water, or 1 milliliter of water, by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, great. Is that what your body does with food? Explode it rapidly and release a whole bunch of energy out of it? No, that's not what it does. Also, we spoke about the actual physical phenomena. The thing that we're actually measuring the effect of here is photons, point particles of light, which have a rest mass of 0. So answer me this, Casey, just for fun. Any amount of weight that your body is, plus any amount of photons, each of which weigh nothing at all, will change your weight by how much?
There you go, 0.
Done. Okay. What about if you're exuding a whole bunch of photons? How much will that change your weight?
I don't think it would change that much at all.
0 still, because any amount of weight minus 0 remains unchanged, doesn't it?
I remember that from math, yeah.
There you go. So pretty much it's not the calorie that's causing you to change weight, up or down. Here's another example of why calories in, calories out doesn't work. If I gave you a liter of water, first I weigh you on a scale, then I give you a liter of water and say, drink this, Casey, drink it all right now. And you chug back a liter of water. And then you stand on a scale, immediately having drunk that liter of water. What will happen to your weight?
My weight will go up.
Right, by 1 kilogram, because that's what a liter of water weighs. How many calories did you take in when you drank that liter of water?
0 calories.
None at all. Okay. The calorie is a loose approximation of so-called energy contained in foods. So loose, in fact, that there is no way to track a calorie accurately enough to make a predictable change to your body mass, upward or downward, unless you vastly, grossly, hugely over or under consume mass of food. Because the thing that changes your weight upwards when you eat is the retention of mass that you've taken in your food. Fats, carbohydrates, amino acids, those things weigh, those things are detected by a weighing scale. When you lose weight, it is because you have chemically interacted those carbohydrates and fats mostly with oxygen that you've breathed in at the lungs, and then you have expelled a large proportion of that mass as carbon dioxide gas, and another large portion of it remains in your body for a set period of time as water before you will then either urinate, sweat that out, comes out in your tears, your mucus, other insensible losses like vapor at the lungs when you're breathing. That is the loss of mass, not photons of light. Your body mass is a mass in, mass out exercise, not an energy in, energy out exercise. And the calorie is a measurement or an estimation of energy and not mass. So it's fundamentally flawed. Here's the other problem with it. The labels on foods, you go to a supermarket and buy a food and it says there are 1,200 calories in this prepackaged food. I'll give it that one. They are allowed by law to be out by 20% either way in terms of the actual calories that are in that thing. So there's a 40% range just by reading the label before you forget to adjust for the thermic effect of protein, which, do you know how to do that at home, Casey? Can you do that?
I don't. I can't.
Most people don't. You need a PhD mostly to actually get that one sorted out.
Missed that one.
Telling people at home, just count your calories, just read the labels, count your calories and keep a track of them. Yes, you can predictably lose weight, by which we mean fat. Let's call it what it is, because fat's not a dirty word. All right. You can lose body fat, because that's what most people are trying to do. You can lose body fat by vastly reducing the intake of mass of food. And you could precipitate that vast decrease in the mass intake by equating that mass to calories in some way, loosely. 40% out on the label, another 15, 20% on the thermic effect of protein, add another 80% on the protein because most of the protein is not going to be oxidized for energy. It's going to be added to your body structures because that's what protein does. And I could go on all day with the corrections that you would need to make to get anywhere near being close. That's why these people that go on about calories in, calories out always suggest what you need to do is undercut your current calorie intake by 500 at least, and do that consistently for several months to predictably lose so-called fat, weight fat. All right. That's a great idea. If you want to destroy your metabolism, subject yourself to nutrient deficiency probability, and set your inflammasome and your endocrine system and your hormonal system into a flap that will set you up to fail long term, absolutely go ahead and cut your calories by more than 500 a day for several months at a time at least. Go ahead. And you will predictably lose some body fat during that time, probably. What you will do, however, though, is destroy your ability to maintain an ideal body makeup long term, and it can be a very, very long road back. It's very, very poor advice, and you should never ever do that.
Absolutely.
What you should do is eat a species appropriate, species specific diet for your speciation, that being Homo sapiens sapiens, which is 100% carnivore, no plants of any kind or plant materials of any kind.
I love that.
That'll sort it, basically. I've actually done a video that says, you know, lose weight now, by which we mean fat, of course. In one step, no tracking, no effort. And the video basically says, well, don't eat plants. That's it.
Love it. That's it.
Yeah. Don't count anything. Look, here's another thing with the calories in, calories out before I finally put that one to bed. In the first 2 weeks of 2022, I think it was, wasn't this year, last year, 14 days, I did a thing called priming, whereby you eat vastly, hugely too much massive food in order to make sure you have everything on board for doing some fasting and doing some body recomp and all that kind of stuff. It was a challenge I was doing for some videos and to help out some other influencers that have got the thing going with their program. That's the Steak and Butter Gang, by the way, if you're interested in who that is.
Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, what I did during those 14 days was I consumed between 6,000 and 6,500 so-called calories a day, every day, without fail, for 14 days solid, when my usual baseline is around about the 1,800 mark. Now, according to calories in, calories out proponents, during that period of time, I should have put on quite a bit of fat, weight, because it's thermodynamics, they say. And, you know, what am I talking about? It's the law of thermodynamics. Well, here's what happened. I lost 15 pounds.
Of course.
How does that work? In, calories out. Well, I'll tell you how it works. The diet is vastly, hugely anti-inflammatory, the carnivore diet. That's what I did. 6,500 calories of meat and fat.
Yeah.
That caused
That's amazing.
So that caused my body to become vastly less inflamed and dump out a bunch of water weight. So that was 12.5 of those 15 pounds that came off my body. The other 2.5 pounds, according at least to my biometric impedance scale, which is kind of near on the accuracy, but whatever, fine. 2.5 pounds, it said, was fat that was burned off my body during those 2 weeks. So forget the water. If you want to say, oh, well, it was just water. Well, no, there was 2.5 pounds that came off in the form of fat during 14 days of 6,500 calories, most of which were fat calories. Explain that to me. How does that work? Never mind the water weight. Let's just look at that 2.5 pounds. I have tripled my caloric intake for 14 days. I was weight stable beforehand, fat stable as well. And suddenly my body dumps off fat when I've taken in vastly huge amounts of fat. It's almost as if the inflammasome has something to say, the endocrine system, the hormonal system has something to say on what gear your metabolism is in and whether it's storing or whether it's dumping off mass. Nothing to do with photons of light or heat energy or calories or the laws of thermodynamics, which, by the way, apply. The one they're talking about is the first law of thermodynamics, and it applies specifically, by definition, absolutely and unequivocally only in the context of a closed thermodynamic system, which is a system which can conduct energy, so-called, across its boundary, but not mass. This is a system that cannot gain mass or lose mass. The only thing that it can exchange with its external environment is energy in or out. That's the very sum of the first law of thermodynamics. It says the change in the internal energy of a closed thermodynamic system is equal to the specific heat capacity of that system minus any work that system is doing. So anyway, calories in, calories out, done, finished, nonsense.